I got to be careful how I say that. Because, I mean, you say partner, and it's like, okay, what kind of partner is he? He's my investor partner, okay? He's my investor partner. Uh, Met him in COVID. I took this meeting into a Zoom event, obviously, because we weren't allowed to talk to each other, or, you know, face to face. So, honestly, you look back at that and you go, that was nuts, wasn't it? It was nuts. But anyways, um, Alex was on the other side of the screen, and I'm looking at him, and as you can hopefully tell, I'm, kind of an open person, and I like to pick on people. 24, I'm picking on you tonight, by the way. Is that okay? I like to pick on people, and Alex was just sitting there like, a deer in the headlights, and so I picked on him. I go, Alex, why are you here? What's going on? He said, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. What do you want to do? And he tells me that he was in a band with his now wife, girlfriend at the time. They were living in a van, basically going from gig to gig. I go, oh my gosh, wow. You must really like music. Yeah, he did. Um, and then he said, well, what should I do? And I said, come meet with me. And it's open for anybody who would like to meet with me. Your only requirements is you have to buy me lunch. Thank you, Daniel and Jose, for buying me lunch today. Lunch, coffee. We can meet at my office for free, but I don't like that. Okay? So lunch or coffee is your ticket into whatever you want real estate related. Okay? And so he met and he said, I want to learn how to flip properties. I said, okay, great. And he was very kind. He said, I'm really good with social media and stuff. And, he puts all this stuff on and cameras, and he buys little gadgets all the time. We do a podcast every week. We started that about 4 years ago. Please don't go back 4 years and look at that stuff, because we were really rookies back then. We're more professional now. He's got more professional stuff. I know there's a couple of you here that have been to the office and done the podcast. Speaking of, we do a podcast every week, Thursdays at 4 o'clock at my office in Laguna Hills. If anybody's interested in being a guest, please reach out, okay? Please reach out and let me know, and we'll fill you in a Thursday at 4 o'clock live in our office. He did it last Thursday.
Yep.
Okay? So was it hard?
No.
It was a fun.
Yep.
Yes, we try to keep it fun and light, and you'll enjoy yourself. Okay? She can do it. Anybody can do it, she said. She did a really great job. She did. I don't know that we've had any bad guests. We've had good guests. What? No, we haven't. We have, gosh. No, we have not had any bad guests. And it doesn't matter if you're just starting out and you just want to tell us your story. That's fine too. You don't have to be an expert in something, like Padsplit or whatever. We want to hear anything and everything that's related to real estate and what you're doing. That's what we want to hear, because that's what people are looking for. Okay? Well, let me get into our speaker here. So I can read this here. Let's see. This month, featuring Devon Aguirre.
You got it right.
Is a real estate professional, investor, connector, and a Southern California market manager at Padsplit, the nation's leading shared housing platform. With more than a decade of experience, the company or you?
Me.
You. Devon helps property owners increase their returns while also addressing their affordable housing crisis one room at a time. He wrote this, not me. He brings a passion for creative investment strategies, community impact, and a boosting cash flow. How many have heard about Padsplit before? Is this the first time? Okay, so let me reverse that. How many have never heard of Padsplit? This is the first time. Oh, there's a few. Wow, that's awesome. Okay. Make sure you ask lots of questions. We did on our podcast, but Devon said, don't ask me all the questions because then I won't have anything to talk about. So please ask all the hard questions you may think of because he's awesome. He's great. He'll be able to answer them for you. I would akin Padsplit to Airbnb when it started. I think you're about the same.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Okay. Without further ado, are you recording already? We're streaming live. Hey, come on up.
Awesome. Hello, hello. Thank you, thank you. We'll talk about why Airbnb is kind of okay type of comparison, but that's okay. And I don't beef on Airbnb at the end of the day. I was telling these guys, I actually was at an event a couple weeks ago where Airbnb had another booth next to mine, and they were staring at me, and I was by myself, and they had 7 guys, and I had to call it out, when I talked about what we do and everything like that. And I was like, guys, I'm not beefing on the Airbnb guys. And really, the story is important because I have a big banner that says recoup Airbnb losses or something like that. And so yeah. Anyways, so glad Joe already asked the question if anybody's heard of Padsplit. So it seems like the majority have kind of caught wind a little bit of it, but I'll still touch on the basics of what we do. But the way that I frame this presentation today is a little bit of, we're going to talk about like the affordable housing crisis in Southern California and whether that is a crisis or an opportunity. And spoiler alert, I think it's a little bit of both, right? But what I like to do is I like to make this conversational. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. I will try to spot. You guys are a little wide angle here for me, but one side of the room is definitely going to get missed. So put a big hand up, and I'll call on you. We can do questions as we go along, and then at the end we'll have some time for questions as well. Alrighty. So who am I? Devon Aguirre, Southern California Market Manager for Padsplit. Forgot to update that bullet point, so there's that for you. What I was going to put in there is that I wear a couple hats for Padsplit. What I do is scan the QR code. That's what it's there for. What that's going to do is that's going to take you to my link tree where you can sign up for a monthly webinar that I do. You can join my meetup group where if you might have seen this event in my meetup group. However, I did post it at 9 o'clock, so you may not have seen it there, and that's why you're here on time. But I wear 2 hats really for Padsplit. One of them is to be like a co-living Padsplit evangelist, where I'm out here spreading the good gospel of co-living and increased cash flow. But then also the other hat I do is I help investors onboard their properties onto our platform, really getting from 0 doors to 12 doors. And after that, we have a whole nother team that kind of works with higher portfolio hosts. And hosts are what we call the property owners. Anyways, I'm a father of 3, soon to be 4. I was telling some of the guys out here, I am expecting my 4th baby. Not me. My wife is expecting our 4th baby on November 4th. So got another kid coming. Thank you. And I have 12 years of real estate. So when Joe was talking about the 10 years of experience, Padsplit's been operating since I think 2017. But I've been in the real estate game since 2014, 2013, something like that. Done a couple different roles within the real estate community. I've been a title rep. I'm a real estate broker, but funny enough, I've never actually done a real estate transaction before. I've been a loan officer. So I've touched on almost everything except for, I would say, like, I think I've never done a notary. I've never been a notary. There's a couple other things. But anyways, that's me. Enough about me. What is Padsplit? So real quick, I know we talked about who's heard of Padsplit. Who's heard of co-living? Raise your hands if you've heard of co-living. So a lot of people are like, oh, this is some new strategy. It's not actually. So co-living, all it is people sharing a house by renting out rooms within a property, right? So that's the quick and dirty. But what is Padsplit? We are the nation's largest co-living platform. So what we do is we connect the investors, the hosts, with members, the tenants, in order for them to rent out the host to rent out the room, their property room by room, right? And so what we do, and I'll talk a little bit more about what we do, but at the end of the day, the important thing to remember is we are the marketplace, right? So we don't own these properties. Or one thing that's funny recently that I heard is I had a host ask me, you have a big list of people that are ready to move in, right? And I'm like, it's not what we're not like a subsidized housing or anything like that. This is all market-based. We just connect those two interested parties. But we also do some other stuff, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But why does this matter to investors, right? At the end of the day, it's a difficult investing landscape out there right now for real estate investors. Interest rates are high. They kind of dipped a little bit, I think, over the last couple of months because of the Fed lowering the rates. I know that they're not directly tied, but you know that rates are still in a high place right now. Inventory's low. Long-term rentals are having trouble yielding enough cash flow to make sense for people to purchase. Even short-term rentals like Airbnbs, right? They're saturated in a lot of markets. There's a lot of regulations when it comes to Airbnbs, like licensing, permits, taxes. We were just talking on the podcast about how in Anaheim, you can't even have an Airbnb because the Disney law, you lock that down. You have to stay in a Disney hotel, right? And then flips are becoming underwater. I was at an event last week talking to investors, and predominantly those investors were fix and flip investors, and a lot of them were like, hey, I'd like to talk to you about a potential other exit strategy because I do not think my property is going to sell for what I need it to sell for in order to make the profit that I was looking for when I first got into it. Anyway, so that's the landscape for the investors right now. We're talking about crisis stuff, right? We'll talk about the opportunity here in a minute. And why does this matter for renters, right? I'm pretty sure if you guys are local to Orange County in Southern California as a whole, I don't really have to explain to you that it's very unaffordable here, right? So people who are renting houses, properties are struggling. This is some LA data, so I realize I'm in Orange County and I don't want people to beef. I know that if I'm in Long Beach and I say I'm in LA, people are like, you're not in LA. If I'm in Orange County and I say I'm in LA, people say you're not in LA. Anyways, I pull a lot of my stats for LA County just because it's easy and I've done it already, so that way I don't have to do it all the time. But nearly 500,000 low-income renter households in LA County lack affordable access to affordable housing, right? So approximately 485,000 right there. But you need $54,000 a year in income in order to qualify for a median one-bedroom apartment at $1,500 a month. So 19% of the workforce can't qualify. In addition to all these things, you need a deposit, you need credit score, you need utility deposits, you need furniture, right? And then on top of that, there's just a lack of rental units available in LA County for all the amount of people that are living there. And like I said, a lot of this stuff is going to apply in Orange County as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about the specifics in Orange County. I did a little case study for you guys, kind of local. It's in Santa Ana, but close enough. And so we're getting back to that limited supply. So this data here is a little bit old. It was like 2-3 months ago that this screenshot was grabbed, but it was a search on apartments.com, I believe, for rental units below $1,500 or less in a max of 1 bedroom, 1 baths, right? There was less than 2,000 in all of this geographic area here. I'm not used to my laser pointing working because I usually do this in a brighter area. But in this big area, so all the way down to Temecula, all the way up to the Valley, Orange County, right? Less than 2,000 rentals available for less than $1,500. So that's part of the crisis, right? These people can't find units, they can't afford them. So now we'll talk a little bit about who these people are. So these people, a lot of times, I have to be honest, I refrain from saying affordable housing sometimes out here, especially because all I'm talking to is investors, right? So I'm on the investor side of the equation of the marketplace, and sometimes people are like, affordable housing, what are these, homeless people, right? That's not really who we serve. Like, that's a great mission for somebody else. I love that for them. But for us, what we are doing is we are working with working people who have income, who are just looking for someplace that's maybe a little bit more affordable than a 1-bedroom or a studio apartment. And so these people are the kind of underpinning of our society, the people who work for delivery services. So this screenshot, this slide was pulled from our Atlanta presentation, so that's why DeKalb County, right, stuff like that, Delta Airlines is on here. But the same rules apply, right? It's all these local companies that have people that don't really pay them that whole bunch, so they can't really buy anything, they can't really afford things here, but they do have income. So this is kind of where co-living comes in. So the supply of these units to house these people already exists. And really what co-living taps into is using the spare bedrooms, all the existing housing stock to find affordable housing for these people that we've talked about. And so this is a stat that we had somebody in our company pull. 7.3 million affordable homes could be created from less than 1% of current housing. And there are already 137 million spare bedrooms in the United States. So we talked about the crisis. on both sides of the equation, from the investor and the tenant side. We talked about that there is this stock of homes and rooms available, right? So here's the opportunity. There's an underserved market with high demand, right? We know that there's lots of people out there who take advantage of affordable housing. So we just need to be able to connect the supply, those underutilized homes, with the people who want them and the demand, right? And that's where Padsplit comes in. And we're a private solution to a public problem. So instead of having to use, like the county governments, city governments, instead of having them build affordable housing units, we can tap into the existing housing stock and put people in those, help investors make more money, while also giving an affordable solution to the people looking for one. So as I do this presentation in different municipalities throughout Southern California, I always have to bash a little on LA, because people ask me all the time, they're like, are cities gonna be okay with you doing this? Sharing out houses room by room? And I say, I think the only city that I would have beef with is LA County, because I think they have their hand in the pie a little bit when it comes to affordable housing units and constructing those $1 million little shoe boxes, right? But anyways, so here's where Padsplit comes in, right? So renting by the room is nothing new, but this is where we treat it a little differently, right? So instead of just renting out a 4-bedroom property like you see here on the left for $4,000 a month and receiving about $2,800 in net income, you rent out each room, room by room, and we actually encourage our hosts to add extra bedrooms in, like living rooms and dens and closed offices, things like that. And we're going to talk about that in the case study. A perfect example of what I always say doesn't exist in California. People like this image, right? You see this office thing or whatever this is. Clearly that's not in California. Who's just using all this spare room as just a random not bedroom, right? But I found one that exists, so we'll talk about it. But anyways, so by renting it out room by room and for about $1,200 a month per bedroom, all inclusive, furnished, and utilities included, you more than double the net income of the property, right? And that's really where the model flourishes, is when you get to that 4+ rooms. I always tell people, like, we can chat about any property specifically if you want. We can do a consult, but like really where the cash flow numbers take off is in that 4+. So here's another benefit to doing the co-living model, is it's not necessarily just the increased cash flow, right? And this is something, I just added this into my presentation here, because what I've been seeing a lot lately in Southern California is larger bedroom count properties sitting on the rental market for more and more time. So, 4 or 5 bedroom properties sitting on Zillow for rent 90+ days, 120+ days. That didn't really exist. That wasn't a thing, a year ago, 2 years ago, for all of time in Southern California, right? But now these larger rooms, I think I've kind of been doing some vibe checks when I talk to investors and different real estate professionals throughout Southern California, and I'm like, what do you think is going on? Why is that happening? The answer that I've heard, and this is just all opinions, but I think it's the lack of confidence, right? There's people that maybe would go sign a 12-month lease for a 5-bedroom house are now maybe saying, let's scale down, let's go to a 4-bedroom house. Or we're already in a 3-bedroom house, we'll just stay here until something changes, right? That's what I'm seeing a lot. I've talked to some real estate agents, and same thing, they're like, tenants aren't moving because they don't know what they're gonna get into with the next landlord. Landlords aren't increasing their rates as much as they might be able to because they don't wanna lose a tenant, so vacancy rates are up. This is where this slide comes in. So not only do you get the increased cash flow by renting out each room, but you diversify your streams of income. So you take like a 4-bedroom house, right? That sits vacant for 2 months at $2,000 a month. That's not really accurate for here, but you figure that's going to cost you $4,000 at the end of that 2-year stay. With Padsplit, each room is now its own little rental unit. So you're going to get each room is a new stream of income. So say you converted your 4-bedroom house to a 6-bedroom house like we did in this last slide. Now, if one person leaves in May or whatever that is, what month that is, you still have all these other people paying you your rent. So now you have less vacancy loss risk there. Anyways, next slide. So here we are to case study, and this is always my favorite part. Just did this earlier today, so the numbers are pretty fresh. We don't have a property yet in our inventory in 92704, but that is the close zip code that I could find a property with 2,000 square feet plus, 4 bedrooms plus, and a floor plan. That's always the hard part when I'm searching Zillow. But this is a property that's on the MLS that we're going to talk about, and we're going to run some gross numbers on it, right? I don't get too in the weeds as far as expenses and things like that. because everybody's purchase situation is going to be a little different. But the nice part is, if you like the numbers, you could go purchase this property today. It is on the MLS as of today. But we do have a property in 92647 that was actually just added about 2 weeks ago. That one used to be a 3-bedroom house that the host converted into a 5-bedroom. That 5th bedroom, I actually talked to her, walked the property with her, and advised her to. I didn't advise nobody. Now that we're being recorded, I forget. I talked to her about potentially adding a room, and that made the numbers a lot better for her. And she was like, I don't know, it's gonna be a small room. And I just said, hey, even if the room's a little small, that's okay. You just lower the price a little bit, like it'll fill as long as it's priced right. But anyways, so between the 5 rooms, her average weekly price is $293 per week. So we do the rent collections weekly, so that's why we do it by week. However, I do the numbers for you guys here at the bottom to make it simple. $1,269 a month is what she's averaging between all her rooms. I didn't break down the differences in the rooms. Each room, you can price it differently. We don't control pricing for our hosts. Our hosts have their own pricing, or set their own pricing. However, we do provide a lot of data and recommendations and things like that. But like a private bedroom, or a bedroom with a private bath, you can get a little bit more for, right? Versus a bedroom with a shared bath. Things like an exterior entrance into the room help increase the price, stuff like that. But anyways, she's 100% occupied as of about 2 or 3 days ago. It took her about 4 days to get her first booking and 13 days to get to 80% occupancy. So what I do is I run some comps for the area. So these are rooms for rent in the area, and I know it's a little small, I apologize. The rents per room per month were ranging from about $1,400 a month, $1,350, $1,200, $1,100, $1,000, $1,050. Facebook, you have a room for rent for $1,350 in Westminster. It was like kind of close, but not. So there's actually not that much supply in this specific zip code of 92704. So actually could be a good market for sure. But anyways, here's the property. So like I said, if you guys want to look this address up, it is on the MLS as of today. And this one is actually a little bit nicer than usually what I find when I do these things. Usually I try to find something that needs a little rehab anyways, right? So an investor is going to want to buy it, be able to do some value add there, versus this is like pretty much ready to go. There's only 2 little things that I would do to add some more bedrooms to increase the cash flow, but the purchase price is a little high as well. So what I tell people at the end of this presentation, or at the end of this little case study as well, is like there's always better deals out there. This is a rough numbers deal just to kind of showcase how the model works. So here's our floor plans. Before the reno, you had let me see here. This was a living room. This is that closed-in office that I've never seen out here in Southern California. It has a window, a door right here, but it's just used as an office. It's weird. And then another bedroom and another living room, 2 living rooms. So perfect opportunity to add a door here, extra bedroom, another door here, extra bedroom. And then this was listed as a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, but this is your 5th room right here. So 5, 6, 7, and then this is the 2nd floor, but we didn't do anything here. There was no space to add anything. Maybe you can get creative, but usually when when I talk to hosts about what they should do with the property, I don't say do anything crazy as far as the rehab to turn it into a co-living property. I say anything that you can easily add a wall, a door, right? That's what you really want to be doing, because you don't want to, like, unless you're really going to go gung-ho, you don't necessarily want to like gut the whole place, add in like 900 rooms, make it crazy. There's a little bit of a logistical challenge when you get to over 8 rooms as well. So I just try to make it easy so that way it's simple, low cost to add those extra rooms. We were able to add 3 rooms to this house. The cost of conversion is just the furniture plus adding those rooms, and as you can see, it's a light reno. It's not crazy. I've done some of these where you're like, oh, okay, drawing a big wall here, moving a big wall over there. This one's super simple. I think this is actually a glass door already, so you just need to wall it up, put a regular door. This is just a hallway entrance, so you just need to add a door. And then this one's already ready to go. There's probably some other light renovations you'd need to do because it's not fully turnkey. It's just not a piece of junk like I've seen some of these be. I estimated rent to be between $1,100 and $1,400 to factor in variables like private bathrooms, things like that. One of the rooms had an exterior entrance, stuff like that. But I always like to be conservative, so I did a $1,200 a month rental income per room. which times 7 gets you to around $8,400 a month gross, right? So there's other things that go into this. You've got to keep in mind that there's utilities and things like that. But a 4-bedroom house in this area rents for about $4,250. So we have almost a full 100% increase in the revenue for that property. So kind of this showcases the math of what the potential is. And when I talk to hosts about like locations and things like that, this is actually a really good location as well. Walking distance to a Walmart. There's a lot of shops around here, places of employment. There's a Northgate Market, all within super close walking distance on McFadden and Harbor. So it's right down the street. And what I always like to call out is that there's always better deals out there, right? So this is full retail price, straight from the MLS. There's no wholesale, no nothing that you can probably find a better deal at if you have your own deal flow. If you don't have your own deal flow, I'm glad my new Western boys showed up because you're in my presentation tonight. So Padsplit did partner with New Western, so if you guys need deal flow, talk to the Joshes over there from New Western. They can hook you up with some awesome deals as they get lots of off-market and on-market deals, right, I think. But you can talk to them about what they specialize in. So we talked about crisis, the opportunity. We've talked about the case study, showcasing the numbers. But what does Padsplit actually do in all this, right? So we're talking about how we're just the marketplace. But what we do is we do advertising really well. So what we do is we're constantly advertising not only our service in general, but also in each individual listing that a host brings on our platform. So we put it on, when a host lists their property on our platform, we're going to advertise it on our website. We're going to advertise it on Zillow, Apartments.com, HotPads, Roomies, Zumpers, 60 plus partner websites that we work with, as well as Google SEO, social media ads, all in order to drive traffic to the listing. Then once somebody's interested in booking the room, we have them go through a member screening process where we do a background check, credit check, income verification. And then one thing I always like to call out, especially in California, is we actually have a system that allows you to, allows people to request a book. So it's not like we force these people on our hosts. They request a book, kind of like Airbnb. And there's no penalty for declining those people. What happens is you have 24 hours from when the request comes in to decline, otherwise it does get automatically approved. However, within that 24 hours, you can ask additional screening questions, request additional documentation, all that type of stuff in order to feel comfortable with that person moving in. And like I said, there's no penalty for declining, and you can decline for any reason. Once they're in the property, they have access to our mobile app, which allows the members to rate each other. A host can communicate with them. They can communicate with each other. A host can send whole house messages like, hey, the trash cans need to be taken out on Thursday. They can submit maintenance tickets like, hey, there's a leaky faucet, and it shows up in the host portal. And then we also work with property managers too if our host does not want to self-manage, and we can plug the property manager directly into the portal, and so that way it can pretty much just mailbox money for the investor at that point. It just depends on which property manager you're working with. We also handle the payment collection. So we do the payment collection on a weekly basis, and so that's why you saw the weekly rate on there. However, the stays are not weekly. So that's where it's different than Airbnb for sure. Airbnb is a straight for tourists, hospitality, vacation rental, that type of thing. The people that are on our platform, the demographic, what they're doing is they're looking for essentially an apartment, but for cheaper than what a 1-bedroom or a studio goes for. And we do make them commit to 12 weeks on the platform and 31 days in each individual property. But the average stay is about 9 months on the platform. So, we have some pad splits where people have stayed there for years. It just depends on what their individual goals are and how the host sets up the property for them. Yep.
So basically, this is the backdoor versus Airbnb with Padsplit, because in Airbnb you're not allowed to do that until less than 30 days, right?
Exactly.
Short-term rental.
Yeah.
But after that, it's a regular rental, right?
Yeah, so the question was, is this like the back door that gets around the short-term rental regulations? Yes, 100%, right? So because we make them commit to the 31-day stay, and we also have a lease structure that kind of structures it differently, you most of the time do not need we're on camera, so we always recommend our hosts do their due diligence as far as permitting, licensing, fees, stuff like that.
Okay.
But most cities aren't going to have rules against mid-term or long-term rentals, which is what this would be classified as. So it's not short-term by any means. In the city of Beverly Hills, technically this would be a short-term rental, but I don't think there's going to be many pad splits in Beverly Hills because they just banned all short-term, mid-term rental in August. So you have to have at least a 12-month lease if you're going to rent out a property in Beverly Hills.
Sweet.
Yeah. And so how we advertise these, right? So this is a little bit of a deep dive onto what where we advertise, right? Social media, all those other things. We as we grow out here in LA, so we just launched out here in about April, I think. As we grow out here, you'll start seeing it on bus stops, right? That's how it is in Atlanta. In Atlanta, where we started, we have 8,000 rooms on our platform, and we advertise everywhere. When we go to Atlanta for like training or for company trips, people will see our Padsplit gear and they're like, "Hey, I lived in a Padsplit," or "I know somebody who lives in a Padsplit." Anyways, so we're talking about a lease structure, right? So the way we do it is we have our host sign a 12-month lease with Padsplit LLC, and that we do that for a couple reasons. The main reason we do that is for compliance reasons because certain municipalities have rules against unrelated occupancy, right? And so the way our lease structure works, it's a 12-month lease. There's no termination or breakup penalty or anything like that. So it's not like they're to trap hosts into doing this. It's just there for compliance reasons. What we do is we place the individual members, the tenants, and that's why we call them members, as members of that LLC. And that way they're now related through the LLC, and it's more of like a corporate housing structure versus like a rooming house or boarding house. And so there's that compliance reason, and then we also put an estimated rent on the lease, so that way some investors can use it to get a DSCR loan. If you guys have questions about that, we can chat about that also after. And so evictions. So every time I do one of these meetups and these presentations, everybody's always like, "Hey, what about evictions?" Right? At the end of the day, I just like to be super transparent and honest with people that I talk to, because like I have a reputation in Southern California of like trying to be honest, and once I start burning people, it's not going to make sense. At the end of the day, the eviction is the same process, right? So if you actually get to that point of doing an eviction, it's still the same process. However, there's some things that we do to kind of reduce the likelihood it gets to that point, as well as there's some other benefits to this model, this strategy of real estate investing versus like a traditional long-term rental. At the end of the day, like if you're investing in real estate in Southern California, you always have an eviction risk, right? There's always an potential that a tenant stops paying. When it comes to, like, say that example that I always say, like a 4-bedroom house, right? If there's a family in there and they stop paying, somebody lost their job or something like that, they start getting into that squatting, and not leaving the property after they stop paying rent, you're out that entire property's income until they leave, until you go through the eviction, you get them all out, right? With Padsplit, we're back to that diversification of the income streams. So now, say you had that 4-bedroom house, you turned it into a 6-bedroom house on Padsplit. One person's going through an eviction, you have 5 streams of income still coming in, right? So there's that helps alleviate some of that risk. But then also one of the benefits is that if you are going through an eviction and somebody's squatting in their room, they only have the exclusive right to their room. So you can still go as a host into the common areas. I always say do your due diligence as far as what you do in that common area, but you do still have access to that rather than being locked out of the whole home like you would be in a normal rental. And then on top of that, it is a very uncomfortable situation to squat in a co-living property. You're there with 5 other people. They all know that you're not paying your rent and you're rocking the boat. All these other people are super grateful to be able to have something that's a little bit more affordable in the area. And if you rock the boat and the homeowner the host wants to sell the property because of you, they're going to be pretty upset, right? So they make it pretty uncomfortable for the person living squatting in a room. And then also we ban members that go through an eviction for life from our platform if they ever get evicted out of a Padsplit. So at the end of the day, what we find is that most people will just leave, right? If they say they lost their job or something like that, they'll just leave because the rooms are furnished, so it's not like they have to have their buddies show up with a U-Haul and help them move out. Usually I have somebody here that'll say like, what about a cash for keys? Cash for keys tends to work too. It's a lot cheaper to do a cash for keys for a room renting at $1,200 a month than it is for a family renting a property for $5,000 a month, right? Where are they going to go? How much are you going to have to get them to leave if there's a family in there? They're not staying in a single hotel room for a couple nights till they get something sorted out. They're not sleeping on a buddy's couch or something like that. They need $20,000-$30,000, right, to get out of that property. Versus somebody on Padsplit, you might be, hey, there's $2,000-$3,000, get you a hotel for a couple nights. That way you go back and live with mom or something like that, right? So those are some of the strategies, but at the end of the day, like I said, I like to be honest. There is no magic bullet for evictions, but we have a 1.2% eviction rate, which is lower than long-term rentals and a lot of other rental strategies. So what does it all mean, right? At the end of the day, we bring it all together. It means that you're more likely to earn more net income, so 2 times the average versus a traditional rental. We have a 97.5 collections rate, which is super high. We have a 1.2, I think this is an old number, 1.3% eviction rate, but I'll just read it because it's there. And we offer, you're usually going to be able to lease up your house faster. So not lease, but you're able to rent out your rooms faster than what you would with a traditional rental, especially in today's real estate market, and reduce that vacancy loss. Here is a copy of our buy box. So people ask me all the time, what makes a good pad split? A lot of these are going to be good things when you're looking for a property to purchase to put on the platform. If you scan this QR code, it'll take you directly to the PDF, and then you can save a copy of it. Everything up here is generally a recommendation because there's going to be a pad split out there that works at 1,900 square feet, right? So that's not like you have to have this, we're going to check that or anything like that. The one thing I always like to call out is clearly this was done by somebody out of state, right? That purchase price is way too low for Southern California, $300,000 to $350,000. The only things that are required, that are hard requirements, are the things in this blue box here. And I always like to touch on these, only so that way I can tell you I told you so later when you try to bring me a converted basement with seven bedrooms in it and 1 staircase out, right? You need to have 2 points of egress. So I just actually had a contractor today text me and he goes, hey, yeah, I saw you need 2 points of egress. Does that mean it needs a door to the outside or 2 doors to the outside? And I go, no, that would not make sense. You need 1 door to the common area and a window that qualifies, or you can have a door to the common area and a door to the outside. That works as well if there's no window, but usually a window and an interior door satisfy that. And no wall shorter than 7 feet high or wide. And then the room has to be at least 80 square feet, and it needs an AC vent and a smoke detector. However, the AC vent does not have to be hooked up to the main AC system. It can be a mini split, it can be a window unit. We recommend trying to do like a mini split or something like that so you can control your utilities. And we have a whole efficiency guide on how to set up your property to try to reduce utility costs. And that's something I can send you if you're interested. At the end of the day, most of the properties in California are going to be pretty efficient rated compared to some of the other states that we operate in. Things like low flow shower heads, right? That's on our guide. I don't even think you can get a high flow shower head in California. Ask me how I know. I tried to order one on Amazon. It said not allowed in California. So things like low water, flush toilets that I think I saw there's like a black market out there for like 2-gallon toilets or something that somebody will remodel a house, put it out, and people like fight each other for it. Anyways, so that's it for me. At the end of the day, this is my call to action, if you will. If you have a property that is sitting on the market, let's talk, because I do want to know what's going on in this real estate market right now with things that are sitting, whether for sale or for rent. If you know someone who has a property that they maybe are looking for a different strategy with, we have a referral bonus. We will pay you $1,000 as long as they list their property with 4 rooms or more for 90 days. And we actually have a special promo going on for the next 2 weeks where we double that. And then also, if you're a real estate agent, talk to me. We can help you expand your buy box for your investor clients. Where one of the best things that I like to talk to real estate investors is they say, man, I was always looking at this one narrow path for properties to buy that would make sense for me, whether it's fix and flip or just regular rents. Now that buy box being expanded just a little bit means I'm working in a space that nobody else is, right? But anyways, feel free to book some time with me if you guys want to chat some more. Here's my contact information. That QR code is my contact card. Book a call, you can use that. And then this is that QR code from the very beginning where you can sign up for my meetup. I always recommend everybody sign up for my meetup just so that way one day I can sell it for a profit. Just kidding. But I post all my events in there, so if you see something else that we do, feel free to come on by. I'm doing another event on the 30th of September in Lakewood. I call it Padsplit and Pizza. We get about 20 to 30 investors together. We chat about Padsplit. I do a quick presentation, not as long as this one, very small. And then I have a lender who specializes in financing pad splits there. I have a broker who talks about the numbers and how to analyze these deals. And then this month, I actually have a special ad. I have a property manager who manages 1,100 doors for pad splits throughout the country. I found out that he lives in Glendale, and I was like, hey, I thought you lived in Georgia. You should be in my panel for Padsplit Pizza. Anyways, also free pizza. So come on by, check it out. And then any other event that I do, I post in there. So feel free to sign up for my meetup, the monthly webinar as well. And any questions now that I'm done? I've been talking for a long time. Yeah, we'll go left to right. Sorry, not. I saw you. You're good. All right, go ahead.
Conflict resolution between the members.
Yeah, so he asked about conflict resolution between the members, right? So the nice part about our platform is it's very customizable, right? At the end of the day, we have a lot of procedures and things like that and rules that we can help you with, and things that can set you up for success. But at the end of the day, the conflict resolution comes down to like how well the host manages the property. We see hosts that sometimes get too involved and they're like managing the he said, she said. At the end of the day, where we see the best success is hosts that say like, you guys have to solve your own problems, you're all adults. And really that tends to work, and it's how you set that culture up from the beginning that's what helps with that. We do have a support team for members though that they can reach out to if there's any like legitimate beefs, right? And at the end of the day, like I tell people, like if two people are fighting, call the cops. Like I've gotten calls from hosts before that are like, hey, this is happening right now, and I'm like, why are you talking to me? I'm not there. You know what I mean? Like you're still a landlord at the end of the day, so you just have to keep that in mind. But a lot of these people don't want to lose their rating on our platform as well. They do rate each other, and the landlord and the host rates them as well, and that impacts your ability to book other pad splits. So if you were to get a booking request from somebody and their rating is super low, probably not going to accept them, right? So there's that kind of feeds into that as well.
As a landlord, also worried about sexual harassment.
Exactly. Yeah. So he said, there's potential for sexual harassment or something like that. So at the end of the day, there is a culture that forms within the house. So I wouldn't say necessarily that you can say like, hey, we're only going to do female house, and I wouldn't put that necessarily in the listing description. There might be some fair housing rules violations in there. But like I said, you can decline a booking for any reason. So if you had a 6-bedroom pad split that 5 of the rooms are filled with women, and you got a man that tries to book the 6th, maybe you just decline and you say, we're going to keep it all female, right? Or vice versa, 5 males, 1 female, you say, maybe we'll just decline, just to kind of keep that vibe and that culture. But yeah, I mean, I don't, at the end of the day, like I said, I think that most of these people are just going to keep to themselves. They go in their rooms, they treat it like a little mini apartment. And that's why we actually also recommend getting rid of the common areas. People say like, well, what about a couch and a TV, right? That's kind of where conflicts happen. And so not only do you generate extra revenue by adding a room there, but you also reduce the problems that you might have. So our CEO, Atticus, he has a saying that he likes to say, which is nothing good happens on couches, right? And so there's all sorts of things that could go wrong. You have people hanging out, hogging the TV, right? You also have your buddy sleep over on the couch that nobody else wants there. People, and especially with like living rooms, something I've noticed is people will kind of annex that space. They'll put a desk in there to work from home and things like that. So that it creates more issues than things that it helps with. So that's another reason to get rid of those common areas. You tend to reduce that friction there. Thank you. She said it was great, by the way, guys. Yeah, so the question is, do you need to order or to get permits in order to do some of these renovations? My official answer, I'm on TV, or on the camera here, is we recommend all our hosts do their due diligence. You'll hear me say that a lot. I'm not the permit police, and neither is Padsplit, so we don't check for that sort of thing. So it's up to, so it's on the host. Like if they want to, we encourage them to do what they should, but like I said, we're not going to check. And I'll leave it at that. Anybody? Good. Yeah, so the question is, does Padsplit help with the cost of renovation? Short answer, no, right? That's where the investment comes in from the host themselves and the asset owner, because we don't own the real estate or anything like that. But we do provide support in that we can refer you to general contractors. We have a whole vendor network on our portal for anybody who's like a first-time pad splitter, wants to become a first-time host. They can find pretty much any service that they're going to need for managing their property on Padsplit. Like, and that's part of the other hat that I wear is meeting other vendors and trying to onboard them. And so it's really actually not that hard. It's just really making sure that they're familiar with our model, so that way when a first-time host is interested in doing this, it's almost seamless for them, right? So if I send them to a property manager who's never managed a Padsplit before, it's probably going to be a learning experience for two people at the same time, when it should just only be a learning experience for the owner. But yes, we have property managers, GCs, lenders, photographers, all sorts of vendors on our portal for sure. Yeah, so it's really going to depend. So her question was, what's the net income percentage increase, or the net percentage of income, profit essentially? I get what you're saying. I'm not saying it correctly. It's going to vary for each property, right? So depends on what your debt service looks like on the property. It depends on what rate you have with the property manager if you're using one. It depends on a lot of factors, where the property is located, right, as far as utilities. But what we tend to see is, and also how many bedrooms, right? If you try to do this with a 3-bedroom, the numbers are going to be tight. You know, you get other benefits like the diversification and the streams of income part, but the cash flow might not be there as much as when you get to like 4, 5, 6, 7 bedrooms. So this is what I tell people all the time. I've had people like say like, hey, I have a 2-bedroom condo. Will it work for Padsplit? And I'm going to say probably not. Like, it'll work. Like, we'll feel it if you price it right. But at the end of the day, you're not going to make more money necessarily than if you tried to rent it out as a long-term rental or like an Airbnb, which is, you know, it sounds counterintuitive to what I should be telling them working for Padsplit. But like I said, I want my host to have a good experience doing this. And a 2-bedroom, like, if you're really struggling to fill something like that, like, yeah, we'll help you, obviously. And we'll put anything on the platform if you want to. It's just you might not make more money doing that. So that's where it's really hard to say. 4 bedrooms plus, you're usually going to be looking at like 2x on net income. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Let's go over here. Yep. So we do we do a criminal background check, and the criminal background check, it looks for felony convictions within the last 7 years. And then we also do the credit and the income verification as well. What about damages that are not? So damages, the question was, what about damages, right? So you can technically arrange a security deposit with them off the platform if you'd like. We don't manage those funds. That's host discretion. But if you don't want to do a security deposit, you can do things like a move-in fee, $100 move-in fee that's non-refundable, and that's just upfront, goes directly to the host. As far as like damages, once they're in the property, if you know so there's the listing photos and photos that show what the property is like before they move in, right? And then they take pictures on their way out. If there's damages or anything like that within the room, you can build their account. You just keep receipts. You log it down to their account, talk to our support team, and they'll assess them the fees essentially to cover that. As far as like common areas, it gets a little difficult, but what we say is like you can put cameras in the common areas. Not in the bathrooms, obviously, but like kitchen, if you have your living room with the couch, right? But you know, you can put those cameras in there, and then that can kind of help see those damages. And this goes back to the fact that you're able to access the common areas throughout your entire time with the property on the platform. You can send a monthly cleaning service in, and they can take pictures and just kind of keep an eye on the property for you, or you can do that. We have a host in LA that she lives in the ADU in the back of her Padsplit, and she only lives there like half the year, I think, and she lives in another state most of the time, but she uses it as like a way to not have to pay for a hotel when she's here. And she'll go in and clean when she's here, and she just kind of just checks on things, right? Obviously, that's a lot to manage yourself, so that's where having a cleaning service do something like that, or a property manager. And when Franco comes, you'll see he's the property manager that'll be at Padsplit and Pizza. I think his standard is they have somebody walk the property once a month, stuff like that. So, you know, if there is damage, you can definitely bill their account for sure. Yeah. Yeah, so they sign an individual membership agreement with us. So the question was, The payments are weekly, but what's their contract length? So they sign an individual membership agreement with us, and like I said, in that membership agreement, that's where they commit to 12 weeks on the platform and 31 days in the individual property. All right, anybody else? Maybe this way? I'm working my way down. No? Awesome. No? Last call? Nobody? If you have any other questions you're too scared to ask, I left a flyer over there and I'll stay away from that spot so that way nobody's intimidated. Feel free to grab a flyer or my business card. I will grab it at the end. I won't bother you while you're looking at it. It's okay. And as my link tree on there, everything, if you weren't able to grab it here. Otherwise, oh, last call. Here we go.
How much is the fee for the percentage like a Padsplit taken?
Yeah, so we charge an 8% platform fee on revenue collected. So we charge nothing up front. So there's no listing fees or anything like that. The only fees we charge are once we do what we say we're going to do. And so the platform fee, that's 8%. We also have a booking fee, which is the first 10 days of rent collected once we find a member that moves into the property. However, that can be waived if a host finds their own member. So we give tools on our website like a shareable link, customized flyer, things like that, that if somebody books through those tools, we waive that booking fee. However, I do have a little promo right now for the next 200 units that we add in LA for a property that has 4 bedrooms or more, and it kind of does something with that booking fee. This is being recorded, so I don't want to say it out loud, only because in 2 months somebody's going to call me and be like, hey, I saw that promo thing, and I'm going to be like, oh, it's already filled up. So feel free to reach out. We can chat about it after, not by the flyers. I'll be over here, and then you guys can reach out and ask me about what's going on with that booking fee.
Okay. The booking fee per stay, per booking, right?
Yeah, so per member, but it's one time when they first move in, and then if they stay for 2 years, that's the only booking fee they'll pay. So it's not every month. So I've had people call me and they're like, I thought the booking fee was every month, and I'm like, how would you make any money? Like, of course, that doesn't make sense. But yeah, so it's one time. Anybody else? Alrighty, I'll give it back up to Joe.
Thank you. Does anybody have any real estate related questions they want to ask? None? None? None?
Can you still make money doing flips?
Yes, we make money every day doing flips. Yes. Just depends how inexpensive you buy them for. And yes, in Orange County it's very competitive. We're up to about 80% of after repair value is what we're buying. Riverside 70, San Bernardino 60. But there's deals out there. You just have to go find them.
Where are the hot markets? San Bernardino?
I'd say Riverside.
Riverside?
Yeah. San Bernardino, gets really hot. And then out towards the desert, that's kind of gone away. Joshua Tree and all that stuff. That was mostly, short-term rentals and stuff like that. Your competition, but not really your competition. But that's gone away. Yeah, we don't want to do that stuff anymore out there. And any questions whatsoever? None. Something burning in the back of your mind that you wanted to ask? Yes. This is actually being recorded live, and it'll be on my YouTube channel. So if you want to go there, you'll be able to see the whole thing. Even the questions that you asked are there. Yes. Anybody else? No? No? Going once, going twice, like I do with my Monday morning meetings with my agents. Going once, going twice. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, so we've got this area till like 9 o'clock or so. So please be sure that you network with everybody here. Ask questions. There's a lot of talent here that you can ask questions of. Maybe it's something that you're looking to do or looking not to do. Like I've been to lots of meetups lately where people were saying, Joe, I flipped the property, but I can't sell it. not to brag, but that doesn't happen to me because I buy these properties at the right price. I'm not going to overpay for properties. So make sure that you don't overpay for properties, that you do it at the right price. Okay? Okay, thanks for coming. Appreciate it.